Hi, welcome to Algebra video 3.8, Dividing Radicals and Rationalizing the Denominator. So when we are dividing radicals like this, the very first thing that we can do is we can simplify the fraction inside of them. So like this one, both of those can be divided by 4. And so that's the same thing as 3 over 4. And if you look up here, if we have the two things inside the radical, we can also separate them. So we can say that's the same thing as square root of 3 divided by the square root of 4. And then the square root of 4 is 2, so we can write it like that. All right, let's try one more. So this one, 3 and 75, 3 goes into both of those, and so that's the same thing as 1 over 25. Which is the same thing as square root of 1 over the square root of 25. The square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 25 is 5. Okay, you go ahead and try the next one over here. Okay, the answer to that one is 4. All right, let's try this one. Now, this is like this says here, someone just decided at one point that we could not have radicals in the denominator. It's just like, why do we capitalize first letters of a sentence? Or why do we have certain plurals the way we do? Why do we say geese instead of goose? Because at some point someone decided that's the way it was, and so we keep doing it that way because that's the common way to communicate with it. And so same thing, that's the common way to communicate with when we're talking about radicals. We can't have a radical in the denominator of a fraction. So here's how you get rid of them. You are going to multiply by whatever the radical is in the bottom over whatever the radical is in the bottom. And that works because if I have square root of 2 divided by square root of 2, that's 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. And when I multiply something by 1, that gives us whatever we started with. So I'm not changing the value of this expression, I'm just writing it in a different way so that it does not have a square root or any kind of root in the denominator. So 3 times the square root of 2 is 3 square root of 2, and then the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4, which is 2. So that's our final answer on that one. Okay, this one we've got a square root of 6 in the denominator, so we're going to divide by the square, or I'm sorry, multiply by square root of 6 over square root of 6. 5 times the square root of 6 is square root of 6, and then square root of 6 times square root of 6 is square root of 36, which is just plain 6. And if you're seeing the pattern that when I multiply these together, the square root just goes away because those are inverse operations, that's fine. You don't have to do this step if you're realizing that. Okay, last one. We're going to multiply by square root of 10 over square root of 10. That's 4 square root of 10 over 10. Now we have 4 and 10, and that can be simplified. We divide both of those by 2, and we get 2 over 5, and that square root of 10 is still there. That has not been simplified with the fraction. Okay, so that's as far as we can go on that one. So here's kind of a list of things to look for or to ask yourself. There's more than one way to do some of these problems, and you're just kind of deciding here. So we're thinking about first, is it easier to reduce the fraction inside the middle of here? Or is it easier to separate them and then simplify the numerator and denominator separately? Are there any perfect squares I can take out? Is there a square root in the denominator? If there is, I have to rationalize it like we did up here. Is your radical in the simplest form possible? Meaning, can you take out any more perfect squares of that? And then is your fraction in simplest form? Just like this one right here, 4/10 is not okay. We have to simplify it to 2/5. Okay, so flip over to page 21, and I want you guys to pause the video and do page 21, and then we'll come back with the answers. All right, here are the answers for page 21. And I'll show you the one at the bottom. Square root of 3 over 2. All right, please mark anything that you have questions on and we'll discuss it in class.